Chapter 1. Under the Bridge. Rook did not consider himself a lucky goblin. He considered himself alive, which, if you were a goblin who lived under a bridge, was already an achievement worthy of a bronze medal, and perhaps half a chicken leg. The chicken leg would, of course, have been eaten long before anyone thought about medals, but it's the principle that counts. Life under the bridge was, by goblin standards, an upgrade. His old residence, the Royal Chicken Coop, had been condemned. Not officially condemned, mind you. The Royal Chickens had simply staged a coup and thrown him out. Chickens are, as Rook could tell you, both cruel and organised. So now Rook lived beneath the stone bridge that crossed the River Grumble. The river's constant gurgle provided a soothing background for sleep, or at least it would have, if the trolls who also claimed ownership of the bridge didn't argue about tolls all night. Still, Rook had fashioned a rather fetching bedroll out of discarded onion sacks, and had begun to think of the place as home. It was at this peaceful, onion-scented moment that Rook was summoned to the throne room once again. King Wulfric glared at Rook with the sort of disdain usually reserved for mildew, taxes and in-laws. Queen Mirabel, perched elegantly beside him, offered the ghost of a smile, as if Rook's very existence was a private joke she wasn't going to explain to anyone. And Prince Fluffykins, now a gangly 15-year-old with a voice that cracked like shattered glass, waved cheerfully.
"Rook,"
said the king, his tone suggesting he'd rather be gargling acid.
"Your next quest awaits."
Rook sighed. Quests meant coin, yes, but also near certain death.
Your Majesty, I should remind you that my life expectancy is
"Minimal. Yes, we're aware,"
interrupted Wulfric with relish.
"which is precisely why this quest suits you. You are to travel to the marsh of Gaticook."
Rook's ears twitched. Everyone knew of the marsh. It was where good boots went to die, where mosquitoes the size of ponies had been sighted, and where any mapmaker worth their salt simply scrawled "Here be regrets" across the parchment.
"And in the marsh,"
the king continued with a smile sharp enough to cut cheese,
"you will retrieve for us the spawn of the Toad of Gaticook."
Rook muttered.
that second option of don't come back at all is sounding very reasonable right about now.
"Splendid,"
said the king. At this, Queen Mirabel leaned forward, her voice honey-sweet.
Do be careful, Rook. The spawn is said to be temperamental, but I, for one, would hate to lose you.
Prince Fluffykins added helpfully.
Don't worry, Rook. I'll eat your slice of my birthday cake in case you don't survive, or if you do.
It was perhaps the most affection anyone had ever shown him, which was depressing if you thought about it too long. Chapter 2. The Armoury.
Before you go,
Queen Mirabel said lightly, twirling a jewelled ring on her finger as though none of this involved possible goblin dismemberment.
do stop by the royal armoury. You'll need a proper sword.
Rook's heart leapt.
A sword! A real one!
Not the rusty dagger he currently used, which was only good for peeling apples and scratching awkward itches. He pictured it already. Gleaming steel, dragonhide grip, maybe even a heroic name like Deathfang or Chickenbane. The armoury, however, did not resemble the shining halls of glory he had imagined. It was more of a basement, really. Dust choked the air. Weapons leaned at odd angles, most looking like they'd been stolen from a museum clearance sale. The armourer, an ancient man who looked only half alive and the other half very grumpy about it, squinted at Rook. You must be the goblin. King said you'd be coming. Let's see what we've got. Rook puffed out his chest.
Something shiny. With runes, preferably. Maybe enchanted with lightning.
The armourer grunted, rummaged around and handed him something. It had once, perhaps in a happier century, been a sword. But the blade was bent, the tip broken off entirely, and someone had drawn a smiley face on the hilt in chalk. Rook stared.
This isn't a sword. This is scrap metal with ambitions.
The old man shrugged. All the shiny ones are for knights. You get this. And then the sword twitched in Rook's hand, and then it laughed.
Oh, a goblin master!
The sword cackled in a high squeaky voice.
Lovely! Haven't had one of those in centuries. You and me, we're going to cause some chaos.
Rook nearly dropped it into a barrel of rusty helmets.
Oh no!
The armourer just chuckled. Ah, she's awake again. Good luck, lad. You'll need it. And just like that, Rook's dream of a shiny, rune-etched blade was replaced with this, a chatterbox weapon that laughed like a squirrel on sugar. Rook sighed, slung the onion sack back over his shoulder, and shuffled out of the armory. Somehow he had a feeling this partnership wasn't optional. Back under his bridge, Rook sat with the sword across his lap, glaring at it like it had just stolen his socks. The chalk smiley face on the hilt beamed up at him, smug as a cat on laundry day.
Go on then,
The sword chirped.
name me something dramatic. Ooh, how about Soul Render the Ever-Hungry? Or Bloodfang the Terrible? Or Dash Dash?
Rook rubbed at the chalk with his onion sack.
If I can scrub that face off, maybe you'll stop.
The chalk smeared into a ghastly grin. The sword giggled hysterically.
Oh, I like that even better. I look deranged.
Rook shoved it under a loose stone in the bridge.
There! Problem solved.
The muffled voice echoed up.
I can still hear you, Goblin Master. You can't get rid of me that easily. We're bonded, like fleas and dogs, like socks and goblins, like Dash Dash.
The stone shifted, the sword wriggled, then it leapt straight back into Rook's onion sack. Rook froze.
Oh, no!
Oh, yes!
Hissed the sword with delight.
The Marsh of Gaticook won't know what hit it. Let's go, partner.
Rook buried his face in his hands.
This was going to end badly.
Chapter 3. Stones, Princes, and Shouting Swords. Rook set out at dawn, trudging along the road toward the dreaded Marsh of Gaticook. Onion sack slung over his shoulder, cursed chatterbox sword inside. He was halfway past the castle orchard when something whizzed past his ear. Thunk. A pebble bounced off the road ahead.
Ha!
Came a cracking adolescent voice. Up on the castle wall was Prince Fluffykins, scrawny as ever, pelting him with stones like it was a royal duty.
Go on, Rook!
The prince shouted.
Don't die too fast. At least make it interesting.
Another stone sailed through the air, and was intercepted by the sword which had popped its hilt out of the sack.
Oi, little princeling!
And the sword shrieked.
You throw like a old goat!
Yes,
Rook said flatly.
that is the sword talking.
The sword went on gleefully.
I've seen stronger arms on turnips. And your face? Oh, don't get me started on your face. Looks like a cabbage that lost a knife fight.
Fluffykins' face went beet red.
Father's right. You're both menaces. I hope the Toad of Gaticook eats you alive.
One last rock missed Rook but hit a passing goose. The goose honked furiously and chased the prince down the wall.
Wonderful! The only creature more irritating than the prince is now my travelling companion.
Rook said. The sword snickered.
Oh, partner, you've no idea how irritating I can be.
Ahead, the road grew boggier. Mist curled up like ghostly fingers. The Marsh of Gaticook awaited, and it smelled terrible. By the time the sun dipped low behind the hills, Rook's boots were already squelching with bog water, and his onion sack smelled like it had lost a fight with a wet dog. The road had long since dissolved into a suggestion, the kind of faint trail a cart might once have taken if the cart had been very brave and slightly stupid. The Marsh of Gaticook stretched ahead like an endless soup of shadows. Mist curled thick around the reeds. Somewhere out there, a frog croaked in a tone so deep and ominous, it sounded like doom itself had learned to sing.
Lovely spot,
Chirped the sword from inside the sack.
perfect for a picnic. Did you bring sandwiches? Goblins always bring sandwiches.
Rook plopped down on a raised patch of ground that was only moderately squishy and started a small fire with damp twigs. It smoked like a chimney, but offered enough light to keep the dark at bay.
Sandwiches?
Rook muttered.
Do I look like a goblin who packs sandwiches?
The sword hummed thoughtfully.
No, you look like a goblin who eats the sandwiches of other goblins. But that's fine. Sharing is caring.
Rook poked at the fire and tried to ignore the way the marsh seemed to watch him. Shadows moved in the mist, too big for frogs, too quiet for birds. The reeds rustled, though there was no breeze. He pulled the sword halfway from the sack, more for company than for comfort.
Oi!
Squeaked the blade.
You finally want to talk to me at bedtime? This is moving fast, partner. Should I tell you a story? A lullaby? Maybe a ballad about heroic goblin warriors who die horribly?
Just shut up for 5 minutes.
Rook hissed. But the marsh had other plans. Something splashed in the dark, then another, then many. Dozens of glowing yellow eyes blinked open in the mist, circling the firelight. They moved closer, slithering, hopping, squelching. Rook gripped the sword tighter.
What are they?
He whispered.
Oh!
The sword whispered back, suddenly giddy.
Night hunters! You're going to love this.
The eyes advanced, and then the fire sputtered low. Chapter 4, Circling Eyes. The fire crackled weakly, sending up more smoke than flame, as though even it was nervous about the company. All around, the yellow eyes bobbed closer. Some high, some low, some blinking in unison, some never blinking at all. Rook swallowed hard.
They're watching us.
They're judging you.
The sword corrected in its squeaky voice.
And frankly, I don't blame them. That onion sack is a crime against fashion.
Rook clutched the hilt tighter.
Now is not the time for fashion commentary.
Oh, but it is.
The sword trilled.
A good warrior always looks their best before being devoured.
The eyes edged nearer, and the mist swirled as something large slithered just out of view. A wet croak rattled across the marsh like thunder rolling through mud. Rook leaned forward, squinting at the shapes.
Do you think they're frogs?
Oh, definitely not frogs,
The sword said with glee.
Those are hunters. Old marsh folk. They sneak up in packs, wait till you're half asleep, then pounce.
Helpful.
Rook muttered.
Really calming.
The sword gave a delighted snicker.
Wait till they start singing.
Singing?
Oh, yes. Lovely voices. Haunting. Usually the last thing you hear before they peel your skin off.
Rook shot it a horrified look.
You're making that up!
Am I?
The sword hummed innocently. Another splash sounded, closer this time. The eyes fanned wider, encircling the fire. Rook tried feeding the flames, but the soggy wood gave only a pathetic sputter. Shadows reached in like greedy hands. He whispered through his teeth.
Any chance you're enchanted with fireballs?
Nope.
The sword said cheerfully.
But I am enchanted with sarcasm, and that's almost as good.
A low chorus began to hum through the reeds, deep, croaking, melodic. A rhythm that crawled under Rook's skin and made the fire quiver lower still. The sword cackled.
Told you so!
The humming grew louder until the very ground seemed to vibrate. Then, splash. A tall, slimy shape lurched into the firelight. Its skin glistened like wet leather, its eyes glowed like lanterns, and its mouth stretched wide in a croaking grin. Rook yelped and yanked the sword free.
Stay back! I'm armed!
The sword squealed with glee.
Yes, yes! Wave me around dramatically! Show them your warrior pose!
Rook swung. The blade whistled through the air, missed the creature entirely, and nearly took his own ear off.
Wow,
The sword said, impressed.
you fight like a turnip trying to juggle.
The marsh creature croaked and lunged. Rook screamed, ducked, and flailed the sword wildly. The blade clipped the creature's shoulder, not a killing blow, but enough to make it stumble back with a hiss.
Ha!
The sword crowed.
See? Natural talent.
Another pair of glowing eyes leapt from the mist, claws slashing. Rook turned, tripped over his own onion sack, and toppled onto his backside. The sword, still clutched tight, jabbed forward of its own accord. The point stuck in the creature's leg. The creature howled, hopping in circles before falling face first into the mud.
Victory!
The sword squeaked.
Glorious, heroic victory!
Rook, still flat on his back, muttered,
I think I just accidentally stabbed it.
No such thing as accidentally, partner. We'll tell bards about this one day.
Two more creatures closed in, circling. Rook scrambled up, holding the sword like it might explode.
Don't let them flank us!
The sword yelled.
How?
Rook cried.
Kill them both at once, obviously!
I can't!
You can! Believe in yourself, and in me, mostly in me.
One creature lunged and Rook panicked. He swung with every ounce of goblin desperation. The blade sliced through the air, humming, and, by sheer luck, smacked both attackers across the shins. They collapsed in a tangled heap, wailing. The sword gasped.
Double kill! Legendary!
Rook blinked at the groaning, muddy pile of enemies.
That shouldn't have worked.
Shh, the sword whispered reverently.
Never question destiny.
All around them, the other eyes blinked nervously. The humming faltered. Then, one by one, the shapes melted back into the mist, croaking in uneasy retreat. Rook stood there shaking, muddy, and entirely unsure how he was still alive. The sword giggled.
Told you this would be fun!
Chapter 5. Aftermath by Firelight. Rook collapsed beside the smoking campfire, chest heaving, mud in places he hadn't even known he had places. His onion sack lay in a soggy heap, and the cursed sword was still clutched in his trembling hands.
Well,
the sword piped cheerfully.
That was spectacular! Utterly magnificent! 10 out of 10 for chaos, 2 out of 10 for technique, and a solid 8 for comedic value.
Rook groaned and flopped backward onto the damp ground.
I nearly died.
Nearly,
the sword corrected.
Which is just another way of saying you didn't. See? Already we're rewriting your destiny. No more sneaking around chicken coops, no more hiding under bridges. Oh no, my goblin friend. From now on, people will tell tales of you. Fearless Rook, slayer of marsh horrors, owner of the greatest sword in the kingdom.
You're not great,
Rook muttered into the dirt.
You're loud.
Loud is great,
the sword insisted.
Heroes aren't remembered for being quiet. They're remembered for being noisy, messy, impossible to ignore. And now you've got me. You're impossible to ignore too.
Rook rolled onto his side, glaring at the firelight dancing across the blade's bent, rusty surface.
You're a bent bit of metal with a chalk smile,
the sword giggled.
Exactly! Unique, iconic, the stuff of legends.
Stuff of headaches,
Rook muttered, pulling his onion sack over his head like a blanket. The sword hummed a tuneless, squeaky melody.
Get some rest, partner. Tomorrow, the Marsh of Gaticook will learn our names.
Tomorrow,
Rook mumbled sleepily.
I'm throwing you in a bog.
But the sword only chuckled, smug and certain.
You say that now. Wait till you see what we do together.
The fire sputtered, the mist pressed close, and in the dark beyond a single deep croak rumbled, low and patient. The marsh was waiting. The dawn came sluggish and grey, the kind of light that made everything look like old porridge. Rook groaned, rubbed the sleep from his eyes, and decided one thing with absolute certainty. He was done with the chatterbox sword. He left it lying across the cold fire pit, its chalk grin smudged and its blade crusted in mud.
Good riddance,
he muttered, hoisting his onion sack onto his back.
You can talk someone else to death.
The marsh mist clung to his boots as he trudged on, squelching through muck and reeds. Birds croaked overhead. Somewhere, something big splashed. But Rook was smiling for the first time in days. There was silence. An hour later, he paused for a sip from his water skin, pulled his sack around and nearly leapt out of his skin. The cursed sword was sticking out the top of his pack.
Miss me!
It chirped brightly. Rook screamed so loudly that 3 herons took flight in panic. He dropped the pack, staggered back, and pointed an accusing finger.
I left you. I ditched you.
And yet, destiny finds a way.
The sword sang smugly.
We're a team. You can't outrun fate, Rook.
I can throw fate into a bog,
Rook snapped.
You could try,
the sword said sweetly.
But I'd just swim back.
Grumbling, Rook yanked the sack closed and shoved the blade deep inside, hoping muffled sword talk would be bearable. It wasn't.
So,
the muffled voice carried on.
What's the plan? Sneak into the Marsh of Gaticook, charm the toad, steal its precious spawn, and walk out a hero. Sounds straightforward.
Straightforward? The Toad of Gaticook is the size of a house. It eats knights like croutons. and its spawn are guarded tighter than King Wulfric's breakfast pastries.
Ooh!
the sword cooed.
So we'll need cunning, subtlety, stealth.
Yes,
Rook said, almost hopeful.
Perfect!
The sword chirped.
I'll shout distractions while you sneak in.
Rook groaned so hard it echoed through the marsh.
I'm doomed.
Still he trudged on, reeds parting ahead of him, his mind racing with possible schemes. He needed a plan, something clever enough to outwit a monster, and foolish enough to maybe, just maybe, actually work. Behind him the bog croaked again, louder this time, closer. The Toad of Gaticook was waiting. Chapter 6, Trouble in the Reeds. The marsh thickened into a wall of cattails and crooked trees, their roots tangled like a nest of snakes. Rook crouched low, peering through the reeds. Just ahead, a ring of shallow pools bubbled ominously. Perfect ambush country.
Careful.
He whispered to himself.
Eyes sharp, ears sharper, feet.
Splosh. Rook's boot disappeared into the muck up to the ankle. He toppled sideways with a yelp, onion sack swinging. When he hauled himself up again, dripping green slime, half a dozen little figures had popped out of the pools. They were frog things, each no taller than Rook's knee, armed with cattail spears and wearing lily-pad helmets far too big for their heads. They croaked ferociously. One of them brandished a spear so enthusiastically it poked his neighbour in the eye.
Oh, great!
Rook muttered.
The welcoming committee.
The sword muffled itself from the pack.
At last! Minions to smite.
No smiting!
Rook hissed.
I'm sneaking, remember?
The frog things advanced, croaking in unison like a badly tuned choir. Rook tried holding his hands up in surrender.
Easy, lads. I'm just passing through. No trouble.
One of them jabbed his shin.
Right, that's it!
Rook swung his onion sack like a flail. A dozen onions scattered across the mud, and the frog things immediately slipped, skidded, and tumbled into each other with outraged squeaks. The sword whooped.
Weaponize the vegetables! Genius!
Rook tripped over his own onion, landed flat on his back, and accidentally kicked a frog thing straight into a tree. It slid down the bark with a dazed croak. Another leapt at him, spear aimed for his nose. Rook panicked, yanked the sword from the sack, and the cursed blade shrieked,
Onward to glory!
so loudly that every frog thing froze. They stared at the glowing chalk grin, wide-eyed. Then they bolted in all directions, vanishing into the pools with frightened splashes. Silence returned, broken only by Rook's panting. He lay in the mud, sword in hand, onions floating around him like little boats. The sword giggled.
Admit it, we're unstoppable.
Rook groaned.
I just defeated an army of frogs with onions and screaming. If that's unstoppable, I'm doomed.
The marsh ahead bubbled ominously as though it agreed. The marsh opened into a wide, stinking basin where the mist curled low and thick, heavy as a wet blanket. Rook crouched at the edge of a ridge of roots, parting the reeds carefully with trembling fingers. And there it was, the Toad of Gaticook. It was less of a toad and more of a hill pretending to be one. Its slimy bulk sprawled across a nest of muck, eyes bulging like golden lanterns, throat ballooning with each resonant croak. The sound vibrated through Rook's bones like someone humming inside a giant drum. At its side, half buried in muck, sat a cluster of enormous quivering spawn sacs, each the size of a pumpkin. They pulsed faintly, alive and terrible. Guarded treasure. Rook's stomach sank.
Right.
He whispered.
Sneak in. Grab one sack. Sneak out. Easy.
From the sack on his back, the muffled sword hissed.
Coward's plan!
Survivor's plan!
Rook snapped under his breath. He crept forward a few steps, moving from root to root, silent as he could manage. The toad rumbled, shifting in its muck, but did not stir. One more step. One more breath. He was almost close enough to.
Charge!
Screamed the sword. The sound split the swamp like a thunderclap. Birds exploded from the trees. The toad's eyes bulged wide, fixing instantly on the trembling goblin frozen in its reeds. Rook's heart plummeted into his boots.
You idiot!
He hissed, clutching the hilt to smother the blade. The toad swelled its throat. The swamp trembled.
Oh, good!
the sword chirped merrily. "It heard me!" The Toad of Gaticook bellowed, a roar so deep it sent ripples skittering across the swamp. Rook did the only reasonable thing. He screamed back and bolted straight for the spawn.
Bold move!
The sword crowed.
Reckless! Idiotic! I love it!
Mud sucked at his boots as he stumbled into the nest. The spawn sacks loomed before him, each wobbling like jelly. He grabbed the nearest one. It was slimy, heavier than a barrel and hotter than it had any right to be.
Got it!
He gasped.
Now let's...
The toad lunged, its tongue lashed out thick as a rope and slapped Rook square in the chest. He flew backward, spawn sack and all, smashing into a tree root with a bone-jarring thud. Pain lit up his ribs like fireworks.
Still alive!
The sword said brightly.
You're doing great!
I think I cracked something!
Rook wheezed. The toad's tongue reeled back, dripping slime. Rook staggered to his feet, clutching the wobbling spawn sack. It sloshed horribly, threatening to slip free.
Run faster!
The sword yelled.
I'm trying!
Rook shouted, staggering through the muck. Every step was a fight, boots sucked down, sack slipping, ribs aching with every breath. Behind him the toad thundered forward, each hop shaking the ground. The tongue lashed out again, snagging the onion sack strapped to Rook's back. With a wet slurp, half his supplies were yanked away.
My onions!
Rook cried.
Collateral damage!
The sword shrieked. The toad croaked triumphantly and lunged again. Rook tripped, the spawn sack bounced, and for a sickening moment it seemed it would burst right there in his arms.
No!
He yelped, clutching it tight.
Stay together, you disgusting blob!
Another hop shook him to the ground. The sack slammed into his already bruised ribs, knocking the breath from him. Stars exploded behind his eyes. He gasped, half-conscious, mud in his mouth, spawn squelching in his arms. The toad loomed overhead, throat glowing, ready to swallow him whole. And the sword whispered, oddly calm for once.
Don't drop it now, partner. This is where the story gets good.
Chapter 7. The Crushing Weight of Destiny. Rook didn't even see the tongue coming this time. It whipped out faster than an arrow, wrapping around his middle. Before he could gasp, the toad yanked him off his feet and slammed him against a tree with bone-cracking force. White-hot pain shot through him. Something gave way in his side. Warmth spread under his tunic blood, sticky and fast. The sword shrieked,
Hold on! Heroic agony looks good on you!
Shut up!
Rook croaked, the word torn out of him along with the breath in his lungs. The toad didn't pause. It reared back, throat swelling like a monstrous drum skin, then slammed him again into the trunk. Bark splintered. The world went sideways, and Rook's vision blurred with black spots. He could feel the tongue tightening, squeezing the air from his chest, dragging him closer to that gaping, slime-dripping maw. The spawn sack slipped from his arms, tumbling into the mud with a disgusting squelch.
Not like this!
Rook wheezed.
Not frog food!
The sword quivered in his grip, humming madly.
No, this is where you fight back. Heroes don't die in Chapter 15.
The toad opened its mouth wide, wider than any nightmare should, and began to reel him in. Rook's body screamed with pain, his ribs a shattered mess, blood soaking his side. He clung weakly to the hilt, teeth bared in desperate defiance.
Then you'd better do something.
He growled at the sword.
Because I can't.
The sword crackled with sudden energy, a hot buzz that made Rook's hair stand on end.
Oh!
It whispered, almost gleeful.
Now we're talking!
The toad croaked, and the swamp itself seemed to shake. The toad's tongue squeezed tighter. Rook could hear his ribs creak like twigs under a boot. The swamp reeked of mud, slime, and his own coppery blood. Then the sword began to hum. Not its usual squeaky chatter, but a deep thrumming vibration that rattled Rook's bones harder than the toad ever could.
What's happening?
Rook gasped. The sword giggled, but the sound was sharper now, edged with something dangerous.
You finally asked me to help.
Before Rook could argue, the blade erupted in a blaze of crooked, sputtering light. Sparks spat from the chalk-drawn grin, which now seemed to twist and stretch, glowing with a manic energy. The hum swelled into a shriek that made the swamp itself shudder. The toad froze, its lantern eyes narrowing. Then, with a sickening splat, the sword discharged a burst of raw, chaotic force. The tongue snapped back as though scalded, flinging Rook through the mud like a ragdoll. He landed hard, coughing blood, clutching the sword that now hissed and crackled in his grip. The blast had left a jagged, smoking scar across the toad's face. Its croak wavered, startled and enraged. Rook staggered to his feet, swaying, half-blind with pain.
What? What did you just do?
The sword was panting, if a sword could pant.
Oh, that was the fun part. Been saving it. Chaotic energy, curse fire, little splash of doom. You know, surprises.
Surprises?
Rook wheezed.
That nearly killed me.
You're welcome.
It chirped. The toad roared, slamming its bulk forward, mud geysering up around it. The ground quaked under its weight. The sword buzzed, giddy and wild.
Again! Shall we?
Rook stared at the monster, blood dripping from his chin, spawn sack wobbling at his feet. He had no strength left, except the cursed blade's unpredictable fire, and the swamp suddenly seemed very, very small with both of them ready to explode. Chapter 8. A very loud escape. The toad reeled back, smoke curling from the raw scar across its face. Its golden eyes burned with fury, throat ballooning for another deafening croak. Rook staggered toward the spawn sack, ribs screaming with every step. The cursed sword fizzed in his grip, spitting little sparks that singed his sleeves.
All right,
Rook hissed.
Listen here, you bent butter knife. You're going to behave for once. We blast it, I grab the sack, and we run.
The sword crackled gleefully.
Oh, I love a plan. Can we improvise immediately?
No!
Rook snapped.
Stick to the plan!
The toad lurched forward with a wet thunder, tongue slapping into the mud inches from Rook's feet. He yelped and swung the sword, squeezing his eyes shut. The blade shrieked, discharging another burst of chaotic light, this one smaller, wilder, sending reeds flapping and frogs tumbling from their lily pads. The toad croaked in pain, wobbling back on its haunches. Rook dove for the spawn sack, arms screaming under its jelly-like weight.
Got it! Now run!
The sword buzzed, high-pitched and unhinged.
Or we could finish it. Grand battle. Glory!
Glory won't matter if we're frog guts!
Rook wheezed, stumbling through the muck. The toad bellowed again, tongue whipping dangerously close. Rook ducked, nearly dropping the spawn. The sword fired another accidental spark that scorched his own boot.
Stop shooting me,
he screamed.
Not my fault you're in the way!
The sword cackled. Together they lurched through the swamp, Rook cursing every step, the sword cheering every explosion. Behind them, the toad thundered, smashing roots and sending mud fountains skyward. At last the reeds closed in around them, and for one brief, miraculous heartbeat, Rook realized he was still alive, with the prize in his arms.
See?
He gasped, wheezing and bleeding and covered in slime.
Told you we could do it!
The sword chuckled darkly.
Yes, but this is only half the story.
Behind them the swamp trembled. The toad was not finished. The swamp exploded behind him. Trees shook. Roots snapped. The Toad of Gaticook thundered after Rook like a slimy avalanche, each hop sending a quake through the muck. Rook ran. He didn't so much run as stagger limp flail, clutching the squirming spawn sack like a particularly vengeful pumpkin. His ribs felt like shattered glass. His boot still smoked from the sword's last misfire, and he was fairly certain he'd swallowed enough swamp water to pickle himself.
Faster!
The sword shrieked.
I'm bleeding!
Rook gasped.
Use it as motivation!
The toad's tongue lashed out, smacking the mud inches from Rook's head and showering him with slime. He shrieked and lurched sideways, tripping over a root and bouncing the sack off his face.
Careful!
The sword sang.
That's our prize!
I know it's our prize!
Rook snapped, spitting mud.
It's also my face!
Another thunderous croak rolled over them so loud it rattled Rook's teeth. The reeds ahead thinned open marsh, safety, maybe even survival. He threw himself forward, every breath a stab of pain, every step a prayer. The toad lunged for the final strike. Its tongue lashed again, a blur of slime and muscle, and smacked into a rotten tree instead. The trunk toppled, splashing into the swamp and slowing the monster in a spray of muck. Rook didn't wait to marvel. He staggered on, spawn sack clutched until the sound of pursuit faded into the mist. Hours later, as the sun bled into the horizon, a broken little goblin limped along the rutted road back toward the castle. His tunic was torn, his face streaked with blood and mud, and his onion sack was a memory. The spawn sack wobbled in his arms, faintly pulsing, faintly alive. The sword giggled softly.
We did it, partner. A little bruised, a little bloodied, but victorious.
Rook shot at a death glare.
Victorious! I nearly got digested.
The blade hummed smugly.
Yes, but nearly doesn't count.
And as the castle towers finally crept into view through the evening haze, Rook wondered what was worse, King Wulfric's wrath, or whatever exactly he'd just brought back with him. Chapter 9, A Sword Too Many. By the time Rook limped back to his bridge, every muscle in his body was plotting rebellion. He dropped the spawn sack onto a flat stone, collapsed beside it, and sighed.
Home, sweet dump,
he muttered. The sword crackled in his lap, cheerful as ever.
Triumphant return! We should rehearse your speech. Something bold. Behold, mortals, your saviour.
No,
Rook said flatly. He rubbed the blood off his chin with his sleeve.
I'm going in quiet. Present the spawn. Take my pay. Survive Wulfric's death glares. Simple. Dignified.
The sword gasped.
Dignified? With me?
Exactly the problem.
Rook grumbled. He shoved the sword beneath the bridge, wedging it between two stones.
Stay here. Don't talk. Don't follow.
Abandonment!
The sword wailed.
Betrayal! Goblin treachery!
Silence!
Rook snapped, kicking a stone over it for good measure.
Just for 1 hour, let me not be humiliated.
He hoisted the spawn sack and trudged toward the castle gates. Moments later, the great hall doors swung open. Queen Mirabel leaned forward eagerly. Prince Fluffykins lobbed grapes from the high table, and King Wulfric glowered like a thundercloud. Rook staggered inside, spawn wobbling in his arms.
Quest completed!
He wheezed.
1 spawn delivered.
Clang. The cursed sword skittered across the polished floor, stone still stuck to its hilt. It had somehow followed him.
Ta-da!
It shrieked.
Announcing the heroic Rook!
The hall froze, then chaos. Fluffykins shrieked with laughter, hurling grapes at the glowing chalk face, and Mirabel clapped her hands in delight. Wulfric's face turned a shade of red, usually reserved for volcanic eruptions. Rook buried his face behind the spawn sack.
I told you to stay put!
He hissed. The sword beamed.
And miss my grand entrance? Never!
King Wulfric leapt to his feet, slamming a fist onto the banquet table so hard goblets toppled and a roast goose slid into a duke's lap.
Insolence!
He roared.
You dare bring that talking scrap heap into my hall?
The sword waggled cheerfully on the floor.
Scrap heap! Rude. I prefer eternally cursed relic of doom. Rolls off the tongue.
Guards!
Wulfric bellowed, veins bulging at his temples.
Seize the goblin. Take the blade. Throw them both into the moat.
Rook groaned, clutching the spawn like a shield.
I just nearly died in a swamp.
He muttered.
Can't I at least have food first?
Before the guards could advance, Queen Mirabel rose smoothly, her jewelled sleeves shimmering as she glided to the floor. She picked up the sword, turning it in her hands as though examining a peculiar bauble.
Oh, Wulfric,
She said lightly, her voice carrying like music over the din.
look how it smiles. Surely something this entertaining belongs in our collection.
The sword preened.
She gets it!
Wulfric's eye twitched.
Mirabel.
Besides,
She went on, tapping the blade against her palm.
this goblin brought back the spawn as requested. He deserves rest, not punishment.
A murmur rippled through the court. Even the guards hesitated, unsure whose wrath was the greater to face. Wulfric sputtered, his mustache bristling.
Rest? That bridge dweller has made a mockery of me.
Which
Mirabel said with a sly smile.
is why he amuses me so.
She handed the sword back to Rook, who accepted it with the weariness of a condemned man handed his own coffin lid.
Off with you, Rook. Sleep. Heal. Tomorrow brings another day.
Fluffykin snorted grape juice out his nose, cackling. Wulfric looked seconds from bursting a blood vessel. Rook bowed, or more like tipped sideways in exhaustion, and staggered out, the sword humming smugly in his arms. That night, under his bridge, Rook collapsed onto his pile of rags. The spawn sack pulsed faintly nearby, the cursed sword propped against the stone wall.
Another victory!
It whispered smugly. Rook pulled his onion sack over his face and groaned.
Wake me when it's all over.
The sword chuckled.
Oh, partner, it's only just begun.
The swamp wind rattled the reeds, and in the distance something croaked. Chapter 11. Bridge Life Blues. Morning sunlight slipped through the reeds, glinting off the trickle of water beneath Rook's chosen archway. His home was an assemblage of discarded cloth, cracked pots, and a suspiciously sticky chair leg he'd insisted was a throne. Rook sat cross-legged, gnawing on what might have once been bread or possibly moss, while the cursed sword leaned against a stone, humming cheerfully.
This abode has character.
It chirped.
Damp, yes, but atmospheric, I'd say.
Shut up!
Rook grunted. He shoved the moss bread into his mouth and immediately regretted it.
Ugh! Needs butter. And less swamp.
He attempted chores. By chores, one meant tossing old bones out the door, trying to shoo away ducks that had taken to nesting on his bed, and fishing his sock singular out of the stream. The sword narrated each task like a bard announcing heroic feats.
Behold, the goblin launderer, slayer of stubborn stains, conqueror of river slime.
Do you ever get tired of your own voice?
Rook snapped, wringing out the sock.
Never! My voice is a gift to the ages!
Rook flung the sock at it. The sword batted it aside with an indignant clang. Just as he settled onto his throne, 2 armoured guards clomped down the path, halting at the bridge.
Rook the Goblin,
One announced, nose wrinkled at the smell.
by order of Queen Mirabel, you are summoned to the castle.
Rook groaned.
Not again. Can't a goblin wallow in peace?
The Queen insists you see the healer.
The guard added.
She says if you bleed to death before your next quest, it'll spoil her fun.
The sword gasped.
Ooh, a healer! Perhaps they can polish me too.
Rook dragged himself upright, muttering.
Fine. But I'm not washing first.
Rook shuffled between the 2 guards, dragging his feet like a condemned man. His swamp-stained tunic clung to him in all the wrong places, his hair was a greasy crown of twigs, and the faint odour drifting off him had already wilted 2 passing flower beds. The sword slung over his back was delighted.
We are a vision, a pair for the ages, the gallant goblin knight, and his loyal, cursed companion.
The guards marched him up through the grand castle gates, their boots ringing against the stone. Courtiers and servants gasped as he passed, fanning themselves with handkerchiefs. Prince Fluffykin spotted him from the gallery and nearly doubled over laughing.
By the gods, is that a goblin or a compost heap?
Both.
Rook wheezed.
Mostly compost.
The humiliation wasn't complete until one guard, the taller one, with a suspicious smirk, accidentally stuck out a boot. Rook tripped, his arms pinwheeled, the sword shrieked,
For glory!
and then, splash, straight into the ornamental lily pond in the middle of the courtyard. Carp scattered. Frogs croaked indignantly. Rook surfaced with a water lily plastered to his head. The sword, floating beside him, how it managed that was anyone's guess, chuckled.
At last, a proper bath. Do it again.
The guards hauled Rook out, dripping and smelling somehow worse than before. A trail of swamp water and pond scum marked his path as they dragged him toward the healer's wing. Queen Mirabel, watching from a balcony, dabbed delicately at her mouth to hide a smile. King Wulfric turned purple.
Why me?
Rook moaned, pulling a soggy reed from his ear.
Because you're entertaining,
The sword said smugly.
and destiny has a twisted sense of humour.
The healer's chamber was a quiet, candlelit hall that smelled faintly of lavender and antiseptic herbs. Soft music hummed in the background, and rows of jars glowed with strange liquids on the shelves. It was all very serene until the door slammed open. Rook stumbled in, dripping a continuous puddle across the polished floor. His boots squelched with every step. The pond water carried a faint scent of carp. The sword announced proudly,
Presenting Rook the Moist!
Don't call me that!
Rook hissed, shaking his arms like a dog. A spray of swamp water splattered across the nearest tapestry. The healer, a thin elf with spotless robes and a perpetual expression of disapproval, pressed 2 fingers to his temple.
Oh no,
He sighed.
it's you again.
Good to see you too.
Rook said, peeling a lily pad off his shoulder and dropping it onto the healer's rug.
Don't worry. I'm only mostly dying.
And he smells divine,
The sword added.
like a bog after a thunderstorm.
The healer snapped his fingers. 2 apprentices scurried forward with towels, pinching their noses as they tried to dab Rook dry. One gagged dramatically when a bit of pondweed fell out of his boot.
Is this strictly necessary?
Rook asked, shoving the towels away.
I'm a goblin, not a noble lapdog. Just slap a bandage on and be done with it.
The healer folded their arms.
Sit still.
The sword chuckled, glowing faintly.
Ooh, this is going to be fun.
Chapter 12. Unfit for Healing. The healer pinched the bridge of their nose, muttering a prayer to whichever saint had the patience for goblins.
Why?
He said slowly, as if speaking to a child.
Does Her Majesty insist on sending you to me? You're not a knight, you're not trained, and you reek of
They waved a hand in front of their face.
rotting pond.
Because I survived.
Rook replied, crossing his arms with swampy dignity.
Barely. Which is more than most of Wulfric's chosen meat shields can say.
The healer snorted.
That's one word for it. Personally, I'd call it miraculous dumb luck wrapped in mildew.
The sword perked up, glowing faintly.
Mildew, a noble epithet. Engrave it on his tombstone.
Rook groaned.
Don't help.
The healer clapped their hands.
Enough. Before I waste a single potion on you, you're having a bath.
A what?
Rook blinked.
A bath,
The healer repeated, drawing out the word.
as in water. Soap, scrubbing, removal of the 6 different colonies of fungi currently making your tunic their summer home.
Rook bristled.
This is discrimination. Goblins are meant to smell earthy.
The healer pointed to the pondweed dangling from his ear.
That's not earthy. That's a bog ecosystem. Into the bath.
2 apprentices seized Rook under the arms. He thrashed wildly.
Unhand me! I've faced giant toads, bandits, murderous poultry. I will not face lavender soap.
The sword cackled gleefully.
Oh, I am absolutely staying for this.
Rook dug his heels into the polished floor, snarling like a cornered badger as the 2 apprentices dragged him toward the steaming copper tub in the centre of the chamber.
I refuse.
He barked.
Bathing is for royalty and corpses.
You're halfway to both.
One apprentice grunted, hauling on his arm. The sword rattled with excitement.
Yes, yes, dunk the goblin, scrub the goblin, turn him into a shiny, slippery soap statue.
The apprentices heaved together. Splash! Rook landed in the bath with the grace of a sack of turnips. Water surged over the rim, drenching both assistants and putting out 3 candles. A rubber duck bobbed up from somewhere deep in the tub, squeaking mournfully.
Cursed pond!
Rook sputtered, thrashing.
They're drowning me!
They're washing you.
The healer said, entirely unamused, as they handed each apprentice a long-handled scrub brush. The brushes descended like lances. Rook yelped, twisting and sloshing so violently the sword began chanting commentary like a sports announcer.
Left flank exposed, suds incoming. Oh, a critical hit to the armpit. He's going down. Wait, no, he's back up.
One apprentice slipped on the water-slick floor and toppled headfirst into the tub with Rook. Now 2 sets of limbs flailed in the foam like drowning spiders. The other apprentice tried to help, lost their footing and went tumbling in after. The sword howled with laughter.
Behold, the great battle of Bathington. Who will emerge victorious, clean or goblin?
The tub bucked. Soapsuds erupted like volcanic foam, splattering the healer's pristine robe. The elf closed their eyes, counted to 5 and muttered.
I should have been a librarian.
At last, 3 coughing, dripping figures hauled themselves from the tub. 2 apprentices resembling drowned rats, and Rook, now slightly less green thanks to a liberal coating of lilac-scented bubbles clinging to his ears.
Happy?
Rook snapped, soap dripping into his eyes. The sword purred.
Ecstatic. You smell like a flower funeral.
Rook sat on the healer's bench wrapped in a towel that smelled of lavender and smugness. His hair stuck out like wet moss, and bubbles still clung stubbornly to his left ear.
Right.
The healer said, approaching with a tray of bottles that glowed faintly in the candlelight.
Now that you're less swamp, let's see to those wounds.
They'll heal on their own,
Rook muttered, trying to wriggle off the bench.
Bit of spit and dirt, goblin cure-all.
The healer shoved him back down with surprising strength.
Sit.
The sword piped up helpfully from its stand.
Oh, don't be dramatic, Rook. Imagine the story you'll have. The goblin who survived a swamp, a bath, and being poked with glowing elixirs.
Not helping,
Rook hissed. The healer pulled a cork from the first vial, releasing a puff of golden vapour. The liquid inside shimmered like melted sunlight.
This is for blood loss. It will sting.
I don't like sting,
Rook said.
You'll live.
The healer replied flatly, tipping it onto a cloth. They pressed it against the gash on Rook's side. Rook howled, nearly leaping off the bench.
That's not a sting! That's fire!
The sword hummed.
Oh, I do love the smell of sizzling goblin in the morning.
The healer ignored both of them, uncorking a second vial, this one fizzing green like a swamp bottled on purpose.
What's that one for?
Rook asked suspiciously.
Bone bruises.
I don't bruise. I dash.
The healer slapped it onto his shoulder. Rook let out a strangled noise somewhere between a yelp and a curse in goblin tongue. The sword giggled.
Sing us the song of your people, Rook.
By the time the healer finished, Rook was glowing faintly in patches, smelling of herbs, and sulking as if he'd been personally wronged by medicine.
There.
The healer said, washing their hands.
You won't die. Yet. Try not to get mauled for at least another week.
Rook slid off the bench, tugging at the towel around his waist.
If I ever survive all this,
He muttered.
I'm suing destiny.
The sword leaned against his shoulder, cheerful as ever.
But then what would we do for fun?
Chapter 13. A basement upgrade. Sort of. Rook was still sulking on the healer's bench, towel clinging to him like a badge of shame, when the chamber doors creaked open. Queen Mirabel swept in, glittering in her silks, eyes alight with amusement. The healer straightened immediately, bowing, while Rook tried to hide the soap bubbles still clinging to his ear.
Well, well,
Mirabel said, her voice a melody of mischief.
look at you, Rook. Positively radiant, clean, breathing, and...
She leaned closer, sniffing delicately.
Is that lavender?
Rook grunted.
Don't rub it in. I already feel like a scented candle.
The sword piped up from its corner.
More like a candle that screams.
Mirabel laughed lightly, ignoring Wulfric's favourite healer's scandalised glare.
You amuse me endlessly, Goblin, which is why I've decided your accommodations must improve.
Rook's brow furrowed.
Improve? As in, more moss under the bridge.
No.
She tapped a jewelled finger against her lips.
You'll no longer be sleeping beneath bridges or among ducks. From tonight, you will stay in the basement of the outhouse. It has its own entrance.
Basement?
Rook repeated suspiciously.
Indeed,
Mirabel said.
Stone walls, a roof, a cot, perhaps even a door that closes, a far step above mud and poultry.
The sword gasped dramatically.
We're moving up in the world! From Goblin Underpass to Royal Plumbing Annex.
Rook squinted.
Basement of the outhouse. You mean where you keep...
Mirabel's smile widened ever so slightly.
Exactly.
Rook groaned.
From swamp stink to... other stink. My life just keeps getting shinier.
Precisely.
Mirabel said, patting his head as though he were a very damp, sulky dog.
Rest there tonight, Rook. You'll need your strength. My husband is already dreaming up your next task.
She drifted out, humming, leaving Rook dripping and staring into the middle distance. The sword leaned against his shoulder, smug.
A basement. We're basically nobility now.
Rook tugged his towel tighter.
If this is nobility, remind me never to aim higher.
Rook was halfway to the outhouse basement when the doors creaked again, and Queen Mirabel glided back into the healer's hall. She looked at him, at the sword still dripping swamp water, and wrinkled her nose with delicate amusement.
Oh, yes. One more thing, Rook. That blade of yours looks appalling. You'll take it to the blacksmith tomorrow. Have it scrubbed, polished, oiled. Whatever it takes to make it less embarrassing.
The sword perked up immediately.
At last! A spa day! Hot coals, hammer therapy, and perhaps a little buffing of my runes.
Rook groaned.
You want me to hand this to a blacksmith? The cursed chatterbox? He'll throw me in the forge along with it.
Mirabel's smile widened, all innocent.
Oh, I think it will be enlightening for both of you.
She tapped his cheek like one might a pet frog and drifted away again, leaving Rook muttering curses under his breath. That night, Rook descended into his new quarters, a stone basement beneath the outhouse with a single cot, a crooked candle, and the faint, ever-present gurgle of unseen pipes. The sword hummed happily as he dropped it against the wall.
I love it. Rustic, atmospheric, smells unique.
Smells like royal latrines.
Rook muttered, kicking at the cot. It collapsed with a puff of dust.
Better than the bridge? Barely.
The pipes groaned overhead, rattling like some ancient ghost was trying to crawl through. Every so often a hollow glug echoed, followed by an unholy gurgle. Rook froze.
Did that pipe just laugh at me?
The sword chuckled.
Don't worry! Probably only haunted by the spirits of yesterday's stew.
Rook slumped against the wall, dragging the onion sack over his head for comfort.
I'm never going to sleep.
Glug.
Never.
Far above, in his private chamber, King Wulfric paced before the fire, hands clenched behind his back.
That wretched goblin,
He hissed.
he mocks me with his survival. The toad didn't kill him. The swamp didn't kill him. Soap didn't kill him.
His advisor cleared his throat nervously.
Majesty, perhaps a new quest will...
Yes,
Wulfric spun, eyes gleaming with the glee of a man plotting exquisite misery.
something fatal, something impossible. Let us see if the little pest can crawl back from this.
He spread a map across the table, jabbing one finger at Blackroot Forest.
Caves of Blackroot Forest. The giant spider queen's fang said to contain rare venom of immense power.
The advisor paled.
No one has returned from there, sire.
Exactly.
Wulfric's grin widened.
Summon the goblin at dawn. Let us see how long he laughs.
Far below, under the outhouse, a pipe burped ominously. Chapter 14, The Sword That Wanted to Sparkle. The morning sun had barely climbed over the castle walls when Rook trudged through the courtyard, sword slung across his back and an expression that said, "I've already given up on today." The sword, of course, was thrilled.
Ah, the scent of iron and soot! The clang of artistry! Today, dear Rook, we become legends of luster.
We're getting you scraped, not knighted.
Rook muttered.
Try not to get me killed before breakfast.
They reached the blacksmith's forge, a cavern of fire, sparks, and the smell of hot metal. The blacksmith himself, a burly dwarf named Han, looked up from his anvil with one eyebrow raised.
Well, if it isn't the Queen's goblin errand boy.
Han grunted.
What have you brought me? Another broken chamber pot?
Rook dumped the sword on the counter with a thud.
Orders from Her Majesty. She wants this one. Cleaned.
The sword gave an indignant clang.
Cleaned, polished, buffed, and adored, if you please. I prefer to gleam.
Han blinked.
Did that sword just talk?
Rook sighed.
Loudly, and it doesn't stop.
The sword's runes flickered brighter.
Now, craftsman, be gentle. I require a delicate touch, a mirror finish, and perhaps a light citrus oil. Nothing too rustic.
The dwarf squinted.
You're joking, right?
Rook spread his hands.
Do I look like I'm joking?
Han grabbed a rag, muttered a prayer to the forge gods, and started scrubbing. The sword immediately began a running commentary.
Careful! That's my inscription side. No, clockwise circles, you brute! A little more elbow grease on the hilt! I want to dazzle!
At one point, it actually began humming an off-key tune that sounded suspiciously like
Shine bright like mithril.
By the time Han finished, his beard was smouldering from the forge's heat. His patience was gone, and Rook was trying very hard not to laugh. The sword gleamed like sunlight on snow, practically glowing with smug satisfaction.
Perfection!
It purred.
I could slay by reflection alone.
Rook squinted at it.
You look ridiculous!
Han handed the sword back with a glare.
If it starts singing again, I'm charging double next time.
Rook groaned.
Oh, there's not going to be a next time.
Oh, but there will!
The sword sang sweetly as they left.
A weapon this shiny deserves regular maintenance.
Rook muttered.
I deserve early retirement.
And so, dear listener, our goblin hero departed the forge slightly more singed, considerably more irritated, and now armed with the shiniest, most self-satisfied sword in the realm. Somewhere in the castle, Queen Mirabel was likely sipping tea, quite pleased with herself. And somewhere else, King Wulfric was almost certainly sharpening a brand new quest designed to ruin Rook's week. But for now, the goblin trudged off, half blinded by reflected light and the endless chatter of his newly beautified weapon. Because in Rook's life, peace and quiet are myths, and the next disaster is always polishing itself in the wings. End of chapter.